What are some critiques against budgeting? These are some critiques on the budgeting as a process. No? So again, number one, budgets create internal gaming and myopia or sub-optimization and short-termism in an organization. The reality is budgets are short-term documents. Usually it's only a one-year budget. And because it's only a one-year budget, sometimes management can be so focused on the short-term budget, that sometimes short-term profitability may suffer for long-term results, long-term improvement, right? And that's what we're missing, no, in an annual budget process. Okay? And internal gaming obviously is something that we have extensively discussed already. Okay. So second, budgeting is too resource consuming. Okay. No, obviously budgeting is too resource consuming because a lot of effort is being done to create the budget, especially if it's iterative. So should we still make the budget if it's too resource consuming, right? Thirdly, is calendar year is usually not a good time period for budgets, because there's a lot that could happen in a year. And so, for example, we don't know what will happen in 2 months, in 3 months. We don't know if a surge will be coming again. And so, therefore, calendar year budgeting is actually not very instructive for organizations. Shorter planning periods is sometimes more instructive. It's impossible to make a reliable budget these days related to uncertainty. The budget makes organizations less flexible because they're fixated on the budget or the amount given to them. Sometimes the imagination or creativity or innovation is being stifled by budget constraints. Okay? Contradicting roles in an organization because you want to motivate people through budgets, but sometimes it ends up demotivating them, depending on the process that you use. Okay? So the beyond budgeting movement criticized traditional budgeting and suggested alternatives to the current budgeting process. And one of the alternatives is what's called rolling forecasts. Okay, what are rolling forecasts? I think we should, yes. Traditional budgeting system usually have forecasts rin naman. Okay, so for example, in a year, okay, for year one, this is the budget. So let me draw something. So this is the budget for the full year. Okay. Usually what happens in an organization is that okay, quarterly, ang nangyayari, nagkakaroon ng forecast of what will be the expected results for the remaining periods of the year. Okay? So kung ma-imagine mo, this portion, actual na yan. And this one becomes a forecast. Okay? Para ma-predict, are we still within the budget for the year? Okay? Pagdating ng second quarter, actual na yung first half of the year. Magpo-forecast ka for the second half of the year to check whether you are within budget or not. Pagdating ng third quarter, actual na yung 3 quarters, fourth quarter na lang yung forecast. And it gives us a better idea of whether we'll hit the budget or not. Okay? And then, pagdating ng siguro mga middle of the year, or siguro mga June, July, August, okay, nagsa-start na ng planning process and to make the budget for next year. So usually it's approved siguro mga November of the previous year. Ina-approve ang budget for 2020. Okay? So with that, gagawa na ng budget for year 2. And that's the usual budget process for an organization. Okay? What are the pitfalls of this process? Okay? We are focusing on year 1 only, right? And for year 2, pag-iisipan yan during the time, no, na hindi pa tapos yung taon. Right? I-approve yan pagdating ng November na hindi pa tapos 1/4 of the year. Right? So, this actually has a lot of uncertainty. Okay? What is the suggested suggested response to this. Okay? It is the making or the development of a rolling forecast. What is a rolling forecast? Ganito itsura niya. Okay? So if you have a budget for the first year, for the first 12 months, after one quarter, gagawa ka uli ng isang 12-month budget. After another quarter, so second half of the year, yan, gagawa ka ulit ng isa pang 12-month budget. And then pagdating ng third quarter, gagawa ka ng isa pang 12-month budget. And then pagdating ng fourth quarter, meron ka ng new budget for the year. So kaya siya rolling kasi 12 months 12-month period palagi yung binabudget natin. Okay? What are some characteristics of rolling budgets? So it's not limited to a calendar year. It is any time period. So in that case, in our example, it's every 12 months. Okay? Rolling 12-month budget. So nakikita natin yung trajectory of the company as it moves forward in time. Okay? Rolling forecast because it's more difficult to do because gagawin mo every quarter tapos 12 months ahead agad palagi. So, it is usually prepared in much less detail. Estimates lamang. But at least gives you an idea of where the company is heading. Okay? It is updated regularly, often quarterly. And a rolling forecast may be regarded with the same commitment as the budget. In terms of evaluation, it depends on whether the forecast is just a forecast or a commitment as the budget. Okay? So the rolling forecast solves the idea of short-termism in budgets. Kasi since you're always planning 12 months ahead, okay, naisip mo na agad, pag ginawa mo yung budget this year, okay, yan, ginawa mo yung budget ng January, alam mo na after 3 months, mafo-force ka lang mag-isip ng for 3 months in year 2 na. So it trains you to have a foresight. Alam mo na after 3 months, mafo-force kang mag-plan for 6 months of year 2. So kailangan mo nang tingnan yung buong plano mo ng isang taon. Right? Pagdating ng fourth quarter, alam mo, hahanapan ka na ng plan for 9 months of year 2. So kailangan yung ginagawa mo ngayon, may kinalaman na agad for what will happen next year. And that makes the year 2 budget more predictable, easier, more reliable. Okay? Kasi under the previous system, okay, under the previous system here, for the whole year, year 1 lang yung pinag-iisipan natin. Hindi natin iniisip ang year 2. Right? So, mag-iisipin mo lang yung year 2 pag nag-start ka na ng budget process, which is sometime here. Okay? Ma-approve yung budget sometime here. So, dito ka lang mag-iisip kung anong gagawin mo for next year. Right? So, you might be doing things during this early period that is too short term. It does not take into account what happens in the future. So, let's look at this Manila Water budgeting process because as I mentioned, I work in Manila Water. So, ito yung example ng budgeting process nila. Okay, first, it starts with senior leadership strategic planning. So, ang nangyayari is senior management needs. Sabihin ng senior leadership, ito ang gusto nating maging theme for next year's performance. Okay? Regulatory certainty, for example, or increase in volume of water sold, or expansion in new areas, the expansion in the US, for example. Development of new business models. Yan ang gusto kong mangyari next year. Okay? So senior leadership provides the general themes for next year and for the next 5 years. No specific numbers, but just the general direction. That general theme is downloaded to departments. Now, departments make their own strategic planning. Parang sinasabi, sabi ng senior leadership, ganito raw ang gusto niyang makita sa organization. Ano ang toka natin doon? What's our contribution towards that goal? So departments take the direction and provides their more detailed plans. Once those departments create their detailed plans. It is usually approved in a corporate strategic planning. Departments present plans and their proposed performance indicators to senior leadership for approval. Okay, so ito yung planning aspect, okay, strategic planning aspect. Now, once those key plans and key performance indicators are approved by senior management, they now develop the budget. Okay? So ito na yung budget process. Okay? This is now the budget process. So the first is budget challenging. So may budget challenging at the group level and corporate level. Okay? And it is done by a budget challenging committee composed of select senior management and finance. Okay? So ito yung first revision or will provide the first revision. Okay? Once the first revision is done, ipipresent ulit sa senior leadership at the group level, corporate level, initially to the board level. And then my second revision yan. Okay? And then after the second revision, budget is finalized and then approved by the board. So this usually starts in June. This board approval is in November. Okay? So this whole budget process takes June, July, August, September, October, 6 months to implement. Diba very time consuming? Okay? But the good thing about this process is nauna yung planning, nauna yung approval of the activities. Okay? Kasi nung in-approve na ng top management yung activities in the corporate strategic planning, yung plans and proposed key performance indicators nila, in-approve na ng management yan. Then madali na yung budget. Kasi kailangan mo na lang lagyan ng funding yung mga in-approve na activities. Right? No? And the budget challenging process is a curb budget gaming. Right? Kaya may series of reviews at iba-iba yung nag-review. Kasi you want to curb budget gaming because this is a utility company. No? Ang gagastusin, ita-charge sa consumers. So, kailangan tight ang budgets. There's tight budgetary control. Kasi merong public implication. Kasi kung loose ang budgetary control, there could be expenses that are not planned. Kakarga sa water rates. So, hindi pwedeng maraming budget slack or maraming budget gaming. So, there's several levels of revision. No? So, that's the budgeting process of Manila Water. Okay. So lastly, I just want to sum it all up. So what's the importance of budgets in management control? Number one that you have to understand or realize is budget should correspond to responsibility centers in an organization. Bakit? Okay. Number one, those responsibility centers have targets, and therefore those targets must be given resources. Dapat may budget sila, may resources sila at their disposal so that they can perform the targets or to attain the targets that is set for them for these responsibility centers. Okay. Budgets are also a yardstick for efficiency and effectiveness. No? So that's why important at the responsibility center level, may budget sila. Okay. Now, whether that budget is dictated from the top, bottom up, it depends on the nature of the organization. Okay. Now, budgeting is the heart of management control. I already discussed that at full earlier. No? Second to the last is that the budgeting process influences the controllability of results. Pag bottom up, sasabihin ng mga lower level management, they have more control over their destinies, over their performance, because sa kanila nanggaling yung budget. Okay? And therefore, the budget also becomes a motivational tool. Okay? Not to say that top-down is not motivational. For some instances, like a toll road, as I mentioned to you, top-down approach might be motivational, right? No? Kasi alam nila na very predictable na yung results nila, and the challenge or the marching order of top management might motivate them to do better. Okay? And lastly, there is no single effective budgeting process template. It depends on the industry and what behavior you want to cultivate in implementing strategy. Okay? So uh, so in this lesson, we looked at budgets and the budgeting process as a control tool, a control mechanism, and we looked at budgets in a strategic perspective. Okay? Thank you. That's the end of the lecture.